Hi, it's Bishop Mark. Today is Luke chapter 4, verses 16 to 22. Now, last time we knew how he began his ministry by visiting the various synagogues in Galilee. And today we see that he goes back to his hometown of Nazareth. Now, Nazareth is not a small place. You could think of it as a little village, but it's a city, really. And not cities like we have today, but there was probably 20,000 people that lived in Nazareth. So this is no small place. And he goes to the synagogue. Okay, let's read it. The first part's just what I just said, but we're going to read it anyway. He came to Nazareth, where he had grown up, and went according to his custom into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. So he went to the synagogue. Remember, we learned last time what synagogues were, what happened at synagogues. But the Sabbath day was Saturday. So the Jewish people to this day keep Saturday holy, as we Catholics keep Sunday holy. So Saturday is the Sabbath day, and it's the day that many people would go to the synagogue. And Jesus went every Sabbath day. It says it was his custom. So he grew up like you and me with his parents going to church, or maybe not you, but people go to church on Sundays in our Catholic church, and he went to church, to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, which was Saturday. Okay, here we go. He stood up to read, and was handed a scroll of the prophet Isaiah. He unrolled the scroll and found the passage where it was written. Okay, so we heard that his reputation was growing, and he's known more in Nazareth than any other place. And they handed him a scroll. Do you know what a scroll is? Scroll is like a rolled up piece of paper, except it wasn't paper, it was parchment. It was vellum, perhaps, for his sacred work. And instead of a book like this, it was a scroll, and you open it, right? And they gave it to Jesus to read, which was marking him with honor to read from the scroll. And the scroll they gave him was from the Old Testament prophets. So Isaiah was a prophet. He was someone who spoke about things of the future. We've talked about prophets. And it says essentially that Jesus knew Isaiah very well, of course, and he chose the passage he was going to read. Now, it's an interesting passage for us. This is Luke's version of it, and Luke gives us the next thing I'm going to read is what Luke says he read, but it doesn't exactly follow Isaiah that we have in our Bible. It picks different places. So this is what Luke said he read, and perhaps he's just fitting things together because he can't put the whole book of Isaiah in there, right? So he kind of gives a summary. And so this is what Jesus chose to read according to St. Luke. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives, a recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord. Well, that's what he chose to read. And it's a very interesting thing to read to them. So the first part, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, he has anointed me, is him speaking about himself. Spirit of the Lord is upon me. It's not just Isaiah, who he's reading from, but he is reading, Spirit of the Lord upon me, Jesus. The Lord has anointed me, Jesus, which is would be very surprising to the Jewish people. And they probably didn't thought, he doesn't really mean that. He's just reading Isaiah. He doesn't mean he's the anointed one. But he is. So it's fascinating what he reads. But then, instead of talking about the things they expected if he is the Messiah he would do, the things he says he'll do through Isaiah are to bring good news to poor people, to proclaim freedom to people who are in captivity, like people in jail, to recover sight to the blind. Now we know, well, I can tell you now, that Jesus does do that, but they didn't know that. And let the oppressed go free, like the people hurting, let them be free, and to proclaim a year. So great things are going to happen. This is like a big year. These are the kinds of things he read from the scroll. Now imagine you've heard about Jesus. He comes in. We're ready to hear his message. You've heard he's a great teacher. And he's handed the scroll of Isaiah, and that's what he says. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor, to let the oppressed go free, to bring liberty to captives. These are not the types of things they were expecting him to read when he picked up Isaiah. So they watch him. Okay, here's what happens. Rolling up the scroll, he handed it back to the attendant and sat down. The eyes in all the synagogue looked intently at him. He said to them, "Today, this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing." So, he is speaking about himself. So the people are marveling at this. They're just wondering at it. What does he think he's the Messiah? And if he's the Messiah, his message is for the poor people? It's very confusing. Very confusing. Now, this next verse is a fascinating verse, which is Luke chapter 4, verses 22. In this verse, you can see that people who their minds go fuzzy. So they're all paying attention. They're all wanting good from Jesus, but then they switch. They just switch. Watch this. Verse 22. And all spoke highly of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They also asked, "Isn't this the son of Joseph?" See the switch? They go from being amazed at his teaching and wondering and happy, and then they start to doubt. Wait a second. Don't we know Joseph, his father? Isn't he a carpenter? Isn't this Jesus who we know? He's clearly not the Messiah because we know him. We know he was here as a child. What did they expect of the Messiah? Probably this man to come on the clouds or something. But he's too familiar. This holy person, we didn't know him as holy. And now all of a sudden, this guy we know, thinks he's the Messiah? And so they turn. They turn from listening graciously to having doubt. And you see the next time they turn to anger. It's a fascinating one verse, verse 22, where they go from one thing to another. We'll continue this story next time. Okay, peace to you.